Hi, Kita Gimel. We just had a video accident, so I am going to, this is take two. You don't know that, but I am going to try and do this as fast as I can. Okay, so we're up to the last plague, the last very terrible plague. God said to Moses, I will bring but one more plague upon Pharaoh in Egypt. After that, he shall let you go. And when he lets you go, he will drive you out of here, one and all. Tell the people to ask their neighbors for objects of silver and gold. God will make the Egyptians want to give these items to you. This is one of the explanations of how the Israelites are going to have gold to make the golden calf with later when that happens. Moses said, it just says Moses said, where we remember that that Pharaoh said that Moses and Pharaoh would not see each other face to face. But here we're in a scene where they're certainly in the same place. So Moses says that God says, toward midnight I will go forth among the Egyptians, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of the slave girl, and all the firstborn of the cattle. And there shall be a loud cry in all the land of Egypt, such as never been or will ever be heard again. But nothing shall happen to the Israelites, either people or animals, in order that you may know that God makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. God is punishing the Egyptians for their treatment of the Israelites. God is protecting the Israelites. Then all these courtiers of yours shall come to me and bow low to me and say, Go, you and all the people who follow you after that. And then I will go, and Moses left Pharaoh's presence in anger. So they were certainly together. God had told Moses that Pharaoh would not do as he said. God had hardened Pharaoh's heart. God told Moses to tell the whole community of Israelites and say that on the 10th day of this month, each of them shall take a lamb. Each family shall take a lamb. Every household should have a lamb. If the household is too small for a whole lamb, then they'll share with another household who lives nearby. We have this community of people interacting with each other, taking care of each other, and they are supposed to get the lamb on the 10th day, watch over it until the 14th day, on which the assembled congregation of the Israelites shall slaughter the lamb at twilight. Again, we have this grouping of the Israelites. They are becoming a people. They shall take some of the blood of the lamb and put it on the two doorposts of the doorway and the lintel, which is the top part. So you imagine a doorway. They're going to smear blood on that in the houses of which they are to eat it. They shall eat it that same night. They shall roast it over the fire with unleavened bread, matzah, and bitter herbs. At this point, bitter herbs are maybe something that they like to have with the meat. Some people like, that combination. They shall eat it the same night. They shall roast it. I'm going over again. Don't eat any of it raw. It shall all be roasted over the fire. Do not leave any leftovers. If there's anything left over, burn it. You shall eat it ready to go with your walking stick in your hand. You shall eat it in a hurry. It is a Passover offering to God. For that night I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human and animal. And the blood on your houses where you are staying shall be a sign for you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, so that no plague will destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. And then God gives instructions to the Israelites God gives instructions not to the Israelites then, of the people in the story, as we've been kind of going along, but God starts talking to us about how we should celebrate the holiday of Passover. We're supposed to eat unleavened bread for 7 days. We're supposed to clear out anything unleavened from our houses on the first day. And then we go back to the story. Moses summoned all the elders of Israel and said, Go, pick out your lambs for your families, slaughter the Passover offering, we assume as was given according to the instructions given earlier. Take a bunch of hyssop, which is a plant that grows like a brush with like thin woody stems that, you can imagine smearing blood with. Take the hyssop, dip it in the blood, and apply some of the blood to the lintel, the top, and the doorposts. No one should go out the door of their house until morning. When God goes through to hit the Egyptians with this plague, God will see the blood on the lintel and the doorposts and will pass over the door and not let the destroyer, maybe the angel of death, maybe God, I don't know, that's what they call it, enter and hit your home. The people bowed low, and the Israelites went and did as God had commanded Moses and Aaron. In the middle of the night, God struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, the firstborn of Pharaoh, the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon. We're supposed to think of Joseph, who was in the pit and was in the prison when he was accused by Potiphar's wife of attacking her. The same word is used. And the firstborn of the cattle. And Pharaoh got up in the night with all his courtiers and all the Egyptians, because there was a loud cry in Egypt, for there was no house where there was not someone dead. God summoned Moses and Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron in the night and said, "Get up, go from among my people, you and the Israelites with you. Go worship God as you said. Take your flocks and your herds, as you said, be gone, and may you bring a blessing upon me also." It's a weird line to add there, and that's supposed to make us think of God's promise to Abraham that all the families of the earth will bless themselves through you. The Egyptians urged the people on, impatient to have them leave the country, for they said to themselves, "We shall all be dead." So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls, wrapped in their cloaks upon their shoulders. The Israelites had done what Moses had told them, and had gotten objects of silver and gold and clothing from the Egyptians. And the Egyptians journeyed from Ramses, where they were, to the town. That seems a weird word to use, but the compound of Sukkot, which was about 1 day's travel. There were 600,000 men. There were also women, children, and elderly with them, but they were not included in that count. And a mixed multitude. We're not sure who makes up this mixed multitude. Maybe they were Egyptians who chose to go with them, or foreigners living in the land. We don't know. And a lot of livestock. And they baked unleavened cakes of dough that they had taken out of Egypt, since they could not delay, and they had not prepared any provisions, other food for themselves. Some people say that was because they had no faith that they would be going. They didn't make preparations. And other people say that they do have faith. They have faith that God will provide for them. But in any case, they have their unleavened bread, matzah. The Israelites at that point had lived in Egypt for 430 years. And at the end of the 430th year, the Israelites left from the land of Egypt. When Pharaoh let the Israelites go, God did not lead them in the most direct way through the land of the Philistines. For God thought that the Israelites might change their minds when they saw war, because they would have to fight the Philistines to go through the land and return to Egypt. So God led the people in a roundabout way by the Sea of Reeds. They set out from Sukkot, and God led them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night to give them light, so that they could travel day and night. God is with the people. And these are some of the images that are in our chapel at Temple Beth Abraham, which I will show you the next time should we meet again. And God told Moses to have the people camp near the Sea of Reeds, and they did. And God said, "Pharaoh will say, 'The Israelites are lost and confused in the wilderness. I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them, so that I may gain glory through Pharaoh and his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am God, and the Israelites will also see this amazing power that God has." So when Pharaoh was given an update on the Israelites, Pharaoh changed his mind and had his servants get the chariots ready, and took his officers and his men with him, and they chased the Israelites, and they overtook the Israelites at their camp by the Sea of Reeds. As Pharaoh and his army drew near, the Israelites called out to God, and they said to Moses, "Did you bring us out of Egypt to have us die here in the wilderness? We're already complaining." But Moses told them, "Have no fear. Watch what will happen. You will never see these Egyptians again. God will battle for you." And God told Moses to have the people go forward and to lift up his rod and hold it out over the sea to split it, so that the Israelites could march into the sea on dry ground. And the pillar of cloud went from in front of them to behind them, and it came between the Israelites and the Egyptians. And Moses did as he was told, and the sea turned to dry ground, the waters forming a wall for them on their right and on their left. And the Egyptians came after them into the sea, all of them, but God threw the Egyptians into a panic and locked the wheels of their chariots. And God told Moses to hold his arm out again, and the waters came back on all the Egyptians. Not one of them remained. All of them are died. It says not one of them remained. Although there is some talk about Pharaoh wasn't part of this, that Pharaoh's perhaps survived. But the Israelites had crossed the sea on dry ground. Thus, God delivered Israel that day from the Egyptians. And when the Israelites saw the wondrous power of God, they were in awe of God. And they had faith in God and Moses. And then they sang Miriam's song, Mi Chamocha. And Miriam took a timbrel, and she and the women danced and sang. I said Miriam's song. I'm not sure it says that that it's described as that in the Torah, but we all know Michamocha, how who is like you, right? That's what it says. Who is like you? It's a song of praise and awe to God. Okay, I'm going to end there. All right, I'll do another one to sum up, but that's the end of the Passover story.